Alright, close your eyes. It's the 90s. You just listened to Genie in a Bottle, Matrix has hit theaters, and Y2K is making you piss your pants. But, among all of this, something emerged. A comic by the name of M. Rex. The tale of a robot boy named Rex living in a world where humans and machines are constantly at odds with each other. And it was a major flop. The series was dropped after only 2 issues. But that was not the end of Rex. In fact, it was only the beginning. Now, fast forward to 2010. Kesha just released a song with a title that will never be used for anything else ever, a second Titanic was built, and the Star Wars trilogy was finally concluded. On April 23rd of 2010, Generator Rex premiered. And even better, the cartoon was created by the same guys who made the comic. Part of the reason they wanted to adapt M-Rex was because of the success of a different show Man of Action made on Cartoon Network 5 years earlier, but more on that later. Generator Rex made quite a few changes to its source material, but most of them were for the better. In the comic he was blonde, but in the cartoon he's Hispanic, like me. The cartoon ditches the whole sentient technology thing in favor of a new concept, Evos. So basically what happened is all these scientists were experimenting with these tiny machines called nanites, and then they exploded across the world. Every living organism on the planet became infected with nanites. Now for most of them the nanites didn't activate, but whenever they do, that person, plant, or animal is then mutated into this big, scary monster called an Evo. And these things are freaky. Like, really freaky. Surprisingly, I was actually never scared of Generator X when I was a kid. I know, right? This didn't scare me, but this did. I fear no man, but that thing. It scares me. Now seems like a good time to mention Rex is voiced by Daryl Sabara, and in case you don't know, he was Junie in Spy Kids. You see, the connection is that both Generator Rex and Spy Kids are freaking terrifying. So to combat the Evo threat, the government starts this new organization called Providence. They're led by this super strict, grumpy dude named White Knight, and he's also voiced by J.K. Simmons. Providence is dedicated to either capturing or killing the Evos. Did somebody say SCP? You might be thinking, wait, I thought the Evos were mutated people. So you're saying they're killing the mutated people? Yes, they are. They have to kill the mutated people because it's the only way. You see, Generator X, unlike most of the other superhero monster cartoon shows I'm reviewing in this series, is a lot more realistic and focuses a lot more on real-world consequences. This is even reflected in the show's art style with its emphasis on details and shading. And Evos aren't some secret thing hidden from the public. No, everyone knows about Evos, which is another difference Rex has with the other shows. Actually, that sets it apart from most movies in general. Although, now that I think about it, it is a lot like X-Men. Okay, no more comparing. This allows them to show how the existence of Evos has affected everyone in their day-to-day lives. Hey, remember how I said Providence had to kill the Evos? Well, that changed once Rex got involved. You see, Rex has the power to control nanites, which means he can turn Evos back to normal. And since he has control of his own nanites, he has the power to generate uh, uh, metal out of his body, and then reabsorb it back in once he's done. Unfortunately, Rex has a bad case of amnesia, and no one really knows where he came from. And I want to say that even though it is very realistic, it's still not like all depressing all the time. There's a difference between being realistic and being pessimistic. So Rex, he's got his own little like team. So let's go through all the members of his team. So let's start with Agent 6. He's the sixth deadliest man alive, and he's like Rex's mentor and father figure. Sometimes they don't see eye to eye, but they always work together in the end. And also, he has swords that can do magnet stuff. And he is voiced by Wally Kurth. Then there's Doc Holliday. She's the science expert and mother figure to Rex. And in the later seasons, she gets more involved in the action. Also, he used to have a crush on her, but then he stopped because he realized how weird that was. And she's voiced by Gray DeLise. Yes, I'm going to credit all the voice actors. Then we have Bobo, aka the monkey. He's like super hot-headed and trigger-happy. I would like to see who would win in the fight between Bobo, Hit Monkey, and Six Gun Gorilla. Oh, and he's voiced by John DiMaggio, of course. And finally, Noah. He is voiced by Fred Savage. Noah was actually paid by Providence to be Rex's friend. They did this because they wanted to keep Rex calm in case he ever tries to, turn on them. He works for them, yes, but he is still an Evo, and White Knight does not trust Evos. So not too long after the first time Rex and Noah met, they got jumped by this group of Evos called the Pack. So one of them is this really creepy girl named Breach, voiced by Andrew Welch, who can make portals, so she teleports them all to this place called Abyssus. Abyssus is basically this giant country that's completely populated with Evos. There they meet the true leader of the pack, Van Clyce. Oh yeah, and he's voiced by Troy Baker. Which reminds me, make sure he doesn't get his hands on Bobo. He might try to sell him as an NFT. Okay, I admit that was bad. Van Clyce can't survive without active nanites, and Providence's whole thing is that they want to deactivate the nanites and cure everyone, so there's a bit of an issue there. He also has the power to manipulate plants, and it's like, oh, I get it. He does plants and Rex does technology. It's like, oh, it's backwards. It's opposite. Then Van Clyce tries to suck out all Rex's nanites and kill him, but then they get saved by Agent 6, and that's it. That's the pilot. So later on, Rex meets this girl named Cersei, and she's an Evo with the power to— oh my god! So the two of them start to form a bit of a relationship, but then it's revealed that she's working with Van Clyce. Oh, so it's one of those, I see. So in the next episode, the whole facility goes into this big lockdown. So we meet Doc Holliday's sister, who is one of many incurable Evos. And then Rex finds out Noah was paid to be his friend. I feel like they should have waited a little longer before revealing that, and Rex does forgive him pretty quickly as well. So, yeah. Oh, and there's an entire episode dedicated to Breach. Oh, and there's this little girl who turns into a giant slug thing and he just leaves her behind in the pocket world, so yeah. Later on, Rex would meet Dr. Rylander, who was one of the scientists that worked on the original nanite project. Rex finds out that he has parents and a brother, and that they were scientists who worked on the nanite project. Also, Van Clyce, he was one of the scientists also. And it's revealed that Rex's nanites are the only ones that were completed, and that's why he didn't turn into a monster whereas everyone else did. Oh yeah, and then Rylander injects Rex with this thing called the Omega-1 nanite. So, and then Dr. Rylander and Van Clyce fall in this big science machine and then stop existing. But come on, we all know Van Clyce isn't really dead. Not too long after that, Rex meets a group of Evos that he knew before he lost his memory. Rex finds out that he actually used to be kind of a dick, but he realizes that he isn't the same person as he used to be, and it's his actions now that matter the most. Oh, and you might notice something familiar about his friends. I'm not gonna spell it out for you. The episode The Hunter is a great example of the realisticness in Generator Rex. Real quick, I want to bring up the other shows. So, something that I like about all of them, and yes, all of them, is that they all make sure to specify not all humans are good, and not all monsters are bad. So basically, there's this guy named Hunter. Literally Hunter. His wife went Evo and he blamed Providence for not saving her. And he starts spreading all this fake news about Evos and Providence, like he tells everyone that only Evos have nanites when that's not true, and that nanites are contagious, which is also not true. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but everyone starts discriminating against Rex for being an Evo, but also at the same time, Rex is a minority. I feel like that further alludes to the idea that it's a metaphor for racism. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, Hunter Kane is also voiced by John Cena, although later they do recast him with John DiMaggio, but yeah, both their names are John. What's the difference? Then Cersei convinces Rex to use this big undo death machine to undo the death of Van Clyce. See, I told you he wasn't dead. But on the bright side, that gave him new nanites, so Rex was able to cure him and turn him back into a weak, pathetic humanoid. VK wasn't too thrilled about getting his power sapped, so him and the pack invaded Providence directly. During that whole thing, Van Clyce took some of Rex's nanites and then gained the power to turn people into Evos. You see, no matter what Van Clyce's powers are, they're always, in some way, an opposite version of Rex's powers. Then the Omega Nanite decided to be useful and gave Rex the ability to make blue builds. Don't ask why they're blue, they just are. That's their thing. Later on, Cersei would leave the pack and go to Hong Kong to hang out with Rex's Evo friends. It's revealed that Agent 6 is called Agent 6 because he's the sixth deadliest man alive. I like to think that the Six are just the grown-up versions of the kids next door. Six explains that his relationship with Rex is what stopped him from going down a darker path. Hey, is it just me, or did anyone else notice how it's kinda weird how Ivy can use bandages to fight people, and Tuck can also do that, even though Tuck is an Evo but Ivy's a human? After that, Rex was reunited with his older brother, Caesar, who had been stuck up in outer space the past 5 years. Jungle Cat, an old servant of Van Clyce, decided he wanted revenge on his former master, so he teamed up with Providence, which I thought was a pretty cool twist. The team would attempt to bring Rex's memories back with this big memory restore machine, but then it would completely backfire and take away Six's memories. I like how Six never gets his memories back, it feels more realistic that way, but this does set up a bit of a missed opportunity later on. I need to do a bit more explaining before I can get to that. Van Cleis invented some weird machine that basically gave Breach the power to time travel. Well, there goes that whole realistic aesthetic thing. You see, the problem with introducing a big sci-fi concept like time travel when you already have another big concept like nanites is that one of them kinda takes attention away from the other. Why introduce a complex sci-fi concept when you already have your own complex sci-fi concept? I understand the need to expand upon the show's ideas, but you can't just throw in a whole new concept with its own rules and constraints that has almost nothing to do with the previous one. But you see, using a concept isn't the full story. You also have to worry about the way it's used. Even though time travel doesn't really fit into the world of Generator X, I kinda like the way they used it, but I also kinda don't. So after a tender moment, Rex, Breach, and Van Cleis are all pulled into the wormhole and vanish. Rex arrives 6 months in the future only to find that Providence had been taken over by Black Knight. Get it, Black Knight? Because the other guy was White Knight and she's evil? Also, she's voiced by Jennifer Hale. Since Rex was gone for so long, Providence kinda had to improvise, so they started cracking down on Evos. They made these shock collar things to control them. They even invaded Abyssus and arrested Cersei. Rex was obviously creeped out by this, but then again, he was their biggest asset. What else were they supposed to do? And to make things even creepier, Caesar is fine with all of it. So Rex would leave Providence and join a freelance group with his other allies. Now the agency they once worked for is their enemy. Hey, deja vu. Now this is one of my issues. So remember that whole thing where if Six didn't have Rex, he'd still be a killer? And remember that other thing about how he lost all his memories of Rex? And remember that other thing about Rex disappearing from the entire universe for 6 whole months? It really felt like they were leading up to Six being the enemy in Season 3. That might have been their original plans, but they had to change them. I don't know that to be fact, so don't quote me on that. Either way, this, I think, would have worked better. Before I go any further, do you remember that pin I left 5 hours ago? Yeah, me neither. Well, you can't talk about Generator X Season 3 without talking about the most ambitious crossover ever. Okay, fine, second most ambitious crossover ever. I'm of course referring to Heroes United. And that's not even a joke either. Man of Action said they were planning on doing a crossover since day one. As a kid, I actually didn't like this crossover for the most adorable reason. Because I didn't like watching two of my favorite cartoon heroes beat each other up. Seeing it now, I was a lot more excited. But with that being said, present me was still able to find some things he didn't entirely approve of in this viewing. So basically, Ben 10 gets sucked into this giant wormhole that was created by the Alpha Nanite, who was one of the first few nanites created by Caesar. And the Alpha can even replicate other people's powers. Oh no. Now that's all well and good, but why though? Why is Ben 10 there? This is an episode of Generator Rex, so of course it's going to focus more on Rex, but it does feel like Ben didn't have as much input on the story as he could have. At times, it felt as though you could just replace him with a different character, and most of what happened would have stayed the same. In fact, they could just take the whole crossover out of it and it just be Rex versus the Alpha Nanite. That's it. That's the episode. I could tell they were trying to make him as important as Rex, but it didn't really do it for me. He felt a lot like a backseat character. You could not watch a single episode of Ben 10 before this, and the plot would still make sense. But you can't skip over all of Generator Rex before seeing the crossover, which I know some fans have done. And if you haven't seen Rex, then why are you watching the crossover in the first place? And on that note, I am very glad this was an episode of Rex and not Ben, since Ben already did kind of overshadow Rex. Also, Ben turns into Shock Squatch for the first time for like 5 seconds. I don't know why, but he does. Then Ben turns into Upgrade and fuses with Rex, and together they kill Alpha. Roll credits. Well, not really. It's revealed that Alpha is still alive and is hiding somewhere in the Ben 10 universe. Now, there was a sequel called Hero Times 2, which was a comic book, but it had nothing to do with the Alpha Nanite. But it was very enjoyable, and I do recommend checking it out if you like the crossover. Oh, and even the sequel has heavy focus on Rex's lore, so... Dang it. Dang it, I can't do it. There we go. Okay, back to the final season. So Van Kleiss is in the past, and he builds a stasis device so he can go back to the future. Yeah, but he ends up going insane in the process. So Black Knight recruits VK and all the other remaining scientists who worked on the original Nanite Project to work on the original Nanite Project again. Also, Dr. Rylander, who's like a hologram ghost thing now, or whatever. I found the whole time travel aspect pretty far-fetched, and I am glad they didn't go all the way with it. Like, we never see Rex do any, like, time travel, aside from just the 6 months to the future, and, like, it's not the main thing about Season 3. So, the original purpose of the Nanite Project was to, cure diseases and stuff. Well, a bunch of these rich dudes called the Consortium got involved, and they were like, hey, build us some weapons. And they created the meta-nanites. Each one has authority over a different law of physics, like gravity and time. And if you combined all of them, you would become God. I don't really see how levitating stuff and turning back time 20 seconds would make you God, but whatever. This is a concept that Marvel would shamelessly steal 6 years later. The episode's title is Endgame. I'm telling you, this can't be a coincidence. So the Consortium and Black Knight split up the meta-nanites and each of them got one power. Rex has the option to turn into this giant robot form so he can fight them, but the dilemma is that last time he did that, he lost all his memories. The Consortium decide they want more power and try to combine all the meta-nanites into all of them. But of course, Van Clyde sabotages the whole thing and tries to take all the meta-nanites for himself. I mean, you have a guy who's been stuck in time and lost his mind working for you, and you think something bad isn't gonna happen? Then it's revealed that the nanites were created specifically for only Rex to use them? Wait, then how could... whatever. Then Rex takes all the meta nanites and becomes God for half a second, and then cures all the Evos. So, I don't really get why this happens. Cause, like, in God mode, the only thing he does is cure all the Evos. So if they just wanted all the Evos to be cured, they could have just had him set off an EMP or something. Didn't really need the whole God mode thing. Not just in the finale, but I just feel at all. Like, again, how does manipulating gravity make you all powerful? Maybe you could, like, change up the solar system or something? Ben 10 had a similar finale in which Ben became God, but I feel like it was done better there. The ending to Rex is weird, because it feels for the most part conclusive, but there are still so many loose ends left hanging. Although this technically wasn't the end of Generator Rex. Rex had a crossover with the reboot version of Ben 10, and a lot of fans of the original show were not very pleased by this. Something important to understand is that this wasn't an entire reboot series about Rex, it was just a sort of one-time homage. Obviously, it didn't include every little bit of lore, but then again, it wasn't supposed to. Admittedly, I think it should have included just a little bit more, but whatever. Some of the things they kept were changed, but I wouldn't really describe as dumbed down. They definitely tried to maintain the essence of the character. It was a decent way of adapting him into that kind of universe. And I'm not saying you have to like the reboot, no one has to like anything, but still, I'm just saying. And if they're willing to bring back Rex now, then maybe, just maybe, we can find out who the frick the guy in the purple hat was! This has been Bradworst signing off. You're too late, Rex. The blockchain is mine!